On this edition of City Focus, we invite citizens to sign up for the 9/11 Memorial 5K. Meet the new Utilities Director. City Manager Mark Barber discusses the city's millage rate. And the Valdosta Police Department is looking for citizens to join its Citizens Police Academy. These stories and more on this edition of City Focus. Welcome to City Focus. I'm Marcus McConico, the media coordinator for the City of Valdosta. This is the 15th episode of City Focus in 2021. City Focus is your source for what's happening within your government. Here are the most important topics that are happening in the city.
The City of Valdosta has named David Frost its new Utilities Director. He is excited to make the move from Assistant Director.
Number one, what makes it the department special, the personnel, the people working within it. We've got a real good group of folks working here, and we have a lot of what I consider a lot of support from council to do the projects we need to do, we'll have a lot of opportunities, or have had a lot of opportunities so far to date, to make a lot of the improvements we need to make.
Frost wants to continue educating the citizens of the many aspects of the Utilities Department.
With the community outreach, it definitely helps for the citizens to have a better understanding of exactly what we do here. The whole department itself is pretty complex, and the more we can get the information out to the public, I think the better off it'll be.
Over the years, Frost has seen many changes and major projects within the department, most paid for by SPLOST dollars. The department will continue working to improve city utilities.
A new plant, new force main, two major new lift stations that have been installed, numerous manhole rehabs, numerous sewer line rehabilitations, and the list goes on, not just on the wastewater side, but on the water side. We've made a lot of strides in that too with the water plant.
We congratulate David Frost for being named new Utilities Director.
So the morning of, I was working in Station 1. It was the old Station 1. I was upstairs when Station 3 called. Lieutenant from Station 3 called and told us that a aircraft had hit World Trade Center. After we got the first notification, it was the first aircraft hit the towers, and so at that time, even as a nation, we weren't suspecting terrorist acts. So during that time, there was a website you could go to on the computer, and you could listen to radio traffic from different departments. So once we got the call, I went to the battalion office and pulled up FDNY radio frequency to listen to their radio traffic, and that's when I found out that all their radio traffic was down as far as it being broadcast out. So went downstairs, and even a lot of the 8-hour administration personnel, everybody kind of gathered up, grouped up downstairs at Station 1 and had it on the news when we saw the second aircraft strike the tower. As a first responder working that day, you start wondering what's next, because then you hear about the Pentagon, the aircraft went down to Pennsylvania, and so, you know, it's Atlanta targeted, is, you know, other international airports, aircraft coming out of there, and what are some other targets, and how is that going to affect, what's the world going to look like after this? As far as you're thinking about the first responders that were responding in, you know, they had people coming from off duty and responding once they got the news in New York, and so they know one thing, and that's the mission, and so they're going into the towers to try to save as many people as they can, and obviously not not knowing that they were going to have both towers collapse. How's that going to affect? What's the world going to look like after this? As far as you're thinking about the first responders that were responding in, they had people coming from off duty and responding once they got the news in New York, and so they know one thing, and that's the mission. And so they're going into the towers to try to save as many people as they can, and obviously not knowing that they were going to have both towers collapse. It was a complete change. It was the minute the towers fell and people found out about the tragic loss in New York, and of course, of 343 firefighters. Then, even here, our responses were different. Now, when we respond through downtown, people may not even notice, or the sirens are annoying, or sometimes we're impeding in other people's normal day, is the impression. But after 9/11, for weeks and even months after, people just stopped. They stopped on the streets. They watched the trucks go by. They would wave when you went by, responding. And so traffic stopped at intersections, allowed fire trucks through. And so I think it was just a wake-up call for the nation as to how vulnerable we are, and that we have to rely on first responders to get to where they're supposed to do what they're trained to do. And so the response was different. It was almost eerie because it would stop. Downtown, the hustle and bustle, the chaos, people moving through the streets would stop as fire engines approached and made their way through downtown. And then there were people coming by the stations all the time. They would bring cookies, they would bring snacks, they would bring all kinds of things by just to show their appreciation. More important than anything is just reflect on that day and reflect on the loss and understand that we are still vulnerable. I know we have, we've taken great measures in Homeland Security, and that's good, but that we need to remember the vulnerability we have as a nation, and remember those that were lost that day, and remember how united the country was post 9/11. And so when we get now, we let small things divide us, and those, especially, in the recent past, actually, we got things that people get upset with each other because we've forgotten that it wasn't an attack on any group, it was an attack on the nation. And that's exactly how we responded. I just think that it's important that even though we have some taking great measures of Homeland Security and protection and looking for things, that I still believe that any country is still vulnerable to attacks, and that it doesn't take something that tragic for us to appreciate each other and unite and just take care of our neighbors.
At the most recent City Council meeting, Council approved additional funding for a park and amphitheater in downtown Valdosta.
Green Space Park, right across from City Hall, and it's going to contain an amphitheater. It's going to have a splash pad. It's going to have a passive park feel on one end and an amphitheater concert feel on the other. So something that we've lacked downtown, and actually a lot of our citizens have. This is something they, over the years, would like to see downtown. So again, we're offering something that our citizens have asked for.
The additional funding was needed to complete the project as prices of steel and other materials are increasing.
Since we started this project, steel for the actual amphitheater has went up 215%. So it requires you to be creative, to go back and value engineer the project, see if you can reduce some things at the same time, having a superior deliverable at the end that our citizens expected. So we continue to do that. We're doing that on every project. It's just not specific to the amphitheater project. It's every project now that a local government has.
This park will be a beautiful addition to downtown.
Taking a dilapidated piece of property and turning it into a wonderful park space that's suitable for everyone, adults, kids, whatever the case may be.
Construction for Phase 1 of the park is to be completed in time for the city's Christmas ceremony.
I was off duty. Got hired in September of 2000, so I was still a rookie whenever September 11th occurred. I was actually at a part-time job working for a detail shop cleaning cars, and a customer had come in, wanted me to bring him back to his office to drop him off so we could take care of his vehicle that day. And I remember we left the shop, and we hadn't turned the TV on in the office yet. The manager usually turns it on about 8:30, but anyway, I'd left with the customer, and we listened to the radio, and I was talking to the gentleman, and started hearing this stuff come over the radio, and I guess it really wasn't registering at the time exactly what I was hearing. Dropped the gentleman off, went back to the shop, and then the manager was standing there in shock, and he said, "You got to look at this," and he looked up at the TV, and then just saw the whole world coming apart, really. It's just what we do. I mean, I was in the military before I joined the fire service, and whenever people need stuff, you take care of it. You do what you got to do to help your neighbor. You help your people. And so, looking back at it, it's no different. We would do the same thing today. We'd do the same thing tomorrow. As a whole, that's what we're here for. I mean, knowing, in hindsight, looking back at it, you go, that building is going, could possibly collapse. It doesn't change the fact that we're going to do what we have to do to help people, save as many as we can before we can't. Those 343 that didn't come out of that building, those buildings rather, they all knew what they were doing. At the end of the day, they knew that they were going to help, and they were going to fight fire if they could, and save people when they could, and get out if they could. The amount of people that would just show up at the stations or stop you in the street and wave and honk, and they'd bring cookies and cakes and all kind of stuff to the stations, which firemen love to eat. So, but the outpouring from complete strangers was phenomenal. And then, of course, to watch what happened with the country, I'm talking locally and individually what I witnessed here in Valdosta. But I've got friends and family all over the country, and that's what America is. It's all of us together to fight for one thing, and that's the betterment of this country, and to protect those that can't protect themselves. And at the end of the day, everybody was on the same page, and it was beautiful. It was. I wish we'd see that again. I hope it doesn't take a tragedy to bring it back about, but we need that. But I would like for the country to remember that we're all in this together every day.
Tragedy or no tragedy.
It doesn't matter whether it's sunshiny outside or there's a hurricane coming. We're all in it together, and that's the only way we're going to get out of it is together. So I just want everybody to remember that the person right next to you is the most important part of your life at that particular point in time. They're going to help you if you need it, and you're going to help them if they need it. It doesn't matter what they look like, who they pray to. Just got to help people.
Recently, the City of Valdosta set the fiscal year 2022's millage rate. the rate decreases to 7.796 mils.
We go through a process once a year where we analyze where we're at with property taxes, and we look at our total property tax digest, and if that grows sufficiently to fund our general fund budget, then we're able to lower our millage rate itself. And luckily that happened this year for the city of Valdosta, so we were able to slightly lower our current millage rate.
The city has increased the millage rate only 4 times in the last 25 years. In the same time, it has reduced the millage rate 12 times.
For the most part, folks should see a small decrease on their property tax bill when they get it this year. For an example, a $50,000 piece of property will probably see an adjustment of about $2.50 to $3 from what they paid in the prior year. So we work really hard to make sure that's the lowest rate possible that we can levy, but at the same time continue to offer the superior services such as public safety. That's an example of what property tax pays for in our general fund, our fire department, our police department, and other services.
For more information, visit valdostacity.com.
I was actually working here. I was stationed at Station 6, but for some reason we were up here at the old Station 1. Was not aware when the first plane hit. Somebody came upstairs and said, "Hey, a plane just hit World Trade Center." So we all ran downstairs and turned the TV on, and while we were watching the second plane hit. So, the first time we thought it might have been an accident or whatever with the first plane. But when the second plane hit, that's when we kind of knew, and I kind of knew that it was more than just an accident. And we hadn't even yet heard about the plane that was headed toward the Pentagon or the one that crashed in the field. So those two kind of solidified everything for us. I know it's cliche, but that's the job. I don't think at the time those guys were thinking anything less than they're doing the job. They've responded to that building hundreds of times. They've had, before we had the prior bombing there that wasn't as successful, the prior attack. So they've responded there hundreds of times. So I don't think it was any different in their minds as any other emergency other than a plane had hit the building, of course. But, I think their main concern was trying to get people out and get them to safety. And that's why they did what they did. That's why all of us do what we do. For months, it was, you could be out and about, working, and people would honk their horn and stop. You go out to lunch and, you'd find out somebody paid for your lunch. Come up to you and, it was. We joke sometimes and say, man, we were heroes for 2 months, and then it went back to normal. But actually it was longer than that, and I think that as far as America is concerned, I think they've always had a healthy respect for first responders, fire, police, EMS. That just kind of brought us together. We seem to do better when we're under attack. We seem to come together better when we're under attack. So it was unfortunate circumstances, but that's really not why most of us do the job. I think it becomes part of who you are. Just remember that there are people out there every day on the job that get up every day not knowing what they're going to face on a daily basis. There are families that watch their loved ones walk out the door every day, and they don't know if that's the last time they're going to see them. So I think it should be a day of remembrance to show people that those lives weren't lost in vain. A day to show that America can come together. And a day just to remember how precious life is and how great our country is, and show that we can come together. I think it's an opportunity to just remind ourselves of what a tremendous impact that day had just on America. I mean, it just changed the whole history and trajectory of our country. But we just need to remember that. I just don't want us to wait till another attack to come together. Just remember, we're still all Americans. We're still the melting pot. You know, we're still a young country compared to the rest of the world. We do have some growing pains, but we can still come together when we need to.
The Valdosta Police Department is again teaming up with New Territory Outreach Ministry to help those in need. They are collecting items to help people on the Gulf Coast affected by Hurricane Ida. The group will be collecting items until September 7th.
500 North Toombs, that's the Valdosta Police Department. We are accepting donations 24/7 through Tuesday the 7th. And that's going to give Pastor Allen enough time to gather the items that are donated, find out how much she has, what kind of vehicles she's going to need to get the items down there, and she's going to try to have them delivered down there by Thursday.
You can bring them to the police department 24/7 in the front of the lobby of the police department. You can also bring it to 307 East James Street from 9 to 1 every day.
For more information, contact the Valdosta Police Department or Pastor Monica Allen at 229-442-3058.
I was in training here locally. We were in a child safety car seat training class. And about 9-something, one of the captains come down and told us what was going on. My first reaction was my mama was up around there. So I'm getting on the cell phone trying to find my mama. And to the point where she could not even fly back, when they shut down everything, that, and they couldn't get in a rental car, that I was fixing to go to New York and pick her up. And then at the last minute, one of the nurses in Moultrie ended up getting a rental car, so they had 5 of them in a small box car with their luggage coming back from New York 2 days after. They had a job to do, and they were going to do it at any cost. Their job was to get as many people out, and that's what they were trying to do. Listen, and you'll hear some noises, and some of that noises is the PASS device, which is our emergency device, which we're hearing that. We know what that means. To the normal citizen, they don't. So we know right off the bat, we've got firemen down. And it's helpless to sit there, and even though you're that far away, you still want to be there to try to help your fellow firefighter. And I don't think there was a firefighter in the country that didn't want to be there at the time, because we knew what was going on, and that scared us when we heard that many PASS devices going off. There was a lot of outpouring. I ate a lot of chocolate chip cookies around that time. But a lot of church groups and stuff were dropping stuff off, and you'd go places and people would tell you thank you for what you do and everything. And sometimes today they still do. But it made you feel good that you were doing something that you hope was impacting your community, which is why we do our job. Remember the loved ones that was lost. There was firefighters and even civilians that died that had small children that are now 20, 21, 22 years old. Never got to experience their mother or father. Think about the sacrifices that, not just firefighters, police officers, civilians that were in there. There was a lot of civilians that tried to help other civilians out and ended up perishing because of it. Be kind, be courteous, be respectful. Think about where we could be or what you can do to make our community and our country better. And sometimes just being nice and being respectful is a long way.
The Valdosta Police Department is gearing up to start its fall session for its Citizens Police Academy.
This program, the CPA in this instance, it's free of charge. We provide everything you need, and the learning experience and the takeaway is the great thing.
The course will last 9 weeks, starting September 16th, and will meet every Thursday. The first class will be held at the Valdosta Police Department office.
And the main goal of the CPA program is to just build that bridge between the community and the police department. We want to show off. We want to show everybody what we do here, because Valdosta Police Department is one of the finest police departments in the country, and we know it, and we're proud of it. And we want to let the citizens know that too. And that's why I keep stressing, if you've got questions, this is the best way that you can come and find out anything you ever want to know about the internal workings of the department.
The class is a great opportunity to meet members of the department and understand the inner workings of a police department.
You get to meet a lot of people. A lot of folks have questions about Valdosta Police Department, what we do. This is the perfect opportunity to ask those questions. You get to meet the Chief of Police, all the bureau commanders, Narcotics Division, Drug Task Force, Community Policing, Crime Prevention. Everybody comes, talks to you. So if you got any questions whatsoever about anything that happens here at the Valdosta Police Department, that is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of that.
For more information on how to register for the course, please contact Officer Randall Hancock or call the Valdosta Police Department.
Getting off shift, and I was heading home. My objective that day was to go, and I had a second job, and I was going to go home and shower and change and get ready for my second job. I walked in the house and turned on the news, and sometimes I'll prepare a quick breakfast, but when I looked at the TV, I seen a scene, and at first I thought it was a scene from a movie. And then when I finally understood what was going on, they kept showing the first plane hitting the World Trade Center. And when I seen it, it just, something inside me, it made me kind of sit down. One, I'm from New York, and I have family there. I have the Transit Authority. I have family members that work there, and I have had family friends that worked on the EMS. And I was thinking about my younger brother. When a time arrives as a firefighter, in 99% of the time, you're thinking about others. You're thinking about helping others, benefiting where you can, because you have to have relief for your fellow firefighters and the community. That's what you join this job because you want to serve. Reminded me of what it's truly like to be American. Because when you feel your country and everyone is behind you and show you support, even if they say just thank you and said we appreciate you being there. I mean, we had cards, we had letters. They weren't able to reach out to a lot of the fire department members up in New York, so they reached out to their metro department. And that mean a lot even to smaller departments that had really not that many members, but it letting the community know that they're there for you. We know. Remember the lives that were lost, not just the public safety, the firefighters, even though we do celebrate the lives of the 343. Also, there were average citizens that was around the area within the structures that collapsed, and it was a greater number of Americans lost at that time. But just remember those peoples and the lives that they represent. There was brothers, there was sisters, there's family members, aunts, uncles, nephews, and cousins. And we just want to remember each and every one of them that lives were lost.
None of us wanted to see this again. I do it for these gentlemen. I wear this mask for my family members who I love at home and want dearly to protect. Here we go again. COVID-19 is real, it's in our community, cases are on the rise, and we're here with South Georgia Medical Center, Chairman Bill Slaughter as well, to put that message out to the public.
Citizens, the message we want to send to you today is please consider getting the vaccination. Do that for your family, for yourself, and for the other citizens in this community. The evidence has shown that the vaccination does a tremendous amount to prevent you from getting the COVID. Now, we have right behind us South Georgia Medical Center, and South Georgia Medical Center now has over 50 patients up there with the COVID-19 virus. They're suffering through this. We have no intentions of mandating it, but reality is that the vaccine has worked. I have taken the vaccine, my wife has taken the vaccine. So far, we've been very, very fortunate not to have it. So again, I just want to encourage you, please consider that, get the vaccine. If not, wear the mask, do the things that you need to do to protect your family and this community. Thank you.
Vaccinations blunt the tip of the sword when it comes to the battle against COVID. There's really no excuse. We should all consider becoming vaccinated. Vaccination sites are available at our Smith Northview campus, at private physicians' offices are providing vaccination, and if you need assistance in determining where to become vaccinated, reach out to our website, www.sgmc.org. We invite the public to rethink your position if you've not been vaccinated. It'll help your family, it'll help your community, it'll help our healthcare workforce that's working so hard for you.
Please help us help you and your families by getting a COVID vaccination, or at least consider the vaccination. The science is out there. Please follow the science, do your research, and consider getting the vaccination to help us get to another level where we don't have to wear the mask, don't have to social distance. But please do your part by considering the vaccination.
We were in a car seat technician class at the building on J.C. Shack Road. I was actually on shift that morning. We were in class, and we knew nothing of what was going on at the time. All of our instructors, they back then was beepers, and they kept going off, and you kept seeing the instructors checking their beepers. Like, well, then they called a break for class, and we all went outside and came back in. They still didn't tell us anything, and Captain Jerry Littleton at the time, he was our special operations captain, came in the middle of the class, almost like he was kicking the door in to tell us what was going on, and told us what was going on. And soon after class departed and was canceled, and we all went back to our stations, or some of them went home, whatever, and we ended up having to work the rest of the shift. Those men did exactly what any one of us would do. They put their lives on the line for those thousands of people that were up there. I was actually reading a thing the other day about a lieutenant that was directed to come out of the building right before they collapsed. And he told them over the radio that he was not going to obey the command, that there was more people up there that needed help than them. They had a mission, and their mission was to save lives. And that was what they were doing, whether it took theirs or not. All 343 of them had that mission in mind, to save the lives that were at hand. The outpouring of love that we received here in the community was just absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, it took an event like that to happen. Now we're back to, it seems like, I guess, normal, where it's here and there. But then we couldn't go anywhere without somebody buying us dinner or bringing us some to the station, buying our lunch while we're out, or bringing us drinks or cakes, or churches coming by to see us, things like that. We still get that periodically, but it's nothing like we were getting the days after 9/11 when the community came together on a national level, even a world level. The acts of heroism that were displayed that day, the people that put not only 343 firefighters, but the police officers, the EMS, everyone that was around that scene that was helping people get away from there. It should be part of our history lesson in schools, and should never go away. We should, you don't want to keep reminding about bad things, but let's remember the good things that came out of it. Let's remember the way people reacted, the way people started helping. You know, that is just like Pearl Harbor is a history lesson that we teach. This should be a hardcore lesson that is taught in our kids. Our kids should always, everybody promised 20 years ago to never forget this day, but it seems like everybody's starting to forget.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars. Really tall. I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands? Yes. You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
COVID-19 has changed how we vibe. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Is it safe? Should I get it? Is it free?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts about COVID-19 vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Well, we're pretty much overwhelmed. We're doing the very best we can, but the volume of patients that we see is more than we saw previously. Just like to encourage everybody to please go ahead and have your family members and your loved ones get the vaccine. It's the thing to do.
If you want to protect your child, you want to protect your loved ones, especially the ones with chronic illnesses, immunosuppression, the best way to do that and to reduce your risk and their risk of getting really sick from COVID-19, getting long-haul COVID symptoms, is to get the vaccine.
I'm telling all the patients I see in the clinic who haven't been vaccinated to go that very day, and we try to facilitate that for them. And then tell them to take extra precautions for the following 28 days, at least until they've developed some antibodies.
As short as a month ago, we had single-digit numbers in the hospital, and these numbers have exponentially increased over the last few weeks. So there is definitely a lot of community spread.
So the biggest appeal that I would make to anybody is the same appeal I make to all my patients. I've been vaccinated, my wife's been vaccinated, I made sure my parents got vaccinated. My kids, as soon as the age range is eligible for them, will be vaccinated. Everybody broadly across my family, I've made personal phone calls to and ensured that they got vaccinated. I would never do that to people that I love more than anything if I was concerned about the safety or efficacy of the vaccine, and of course wouldn't take it myself.
The main reason why I'm recommending vaccinations for patients is obviously it's cutting down on the amount of infection, the amount of transmission rates, and keeping people alive.
I'd gotten off duty right around 8 o'clock in the morning. So after I got off duty, we do what we do. We swap out and transfer information to our other employees, and then we head home. So about the time I get home, it's in the time frame of when the first plane hit. So I'm starting to watch CNN and the different news channels and getting an update on what's going on. And I pretty quickly noticed that the size of the hole in the World Trade Center was not a small aircraft, and this was not a normal event. But I still thought it was likely an accident, air traffic control, something along those lines. So as I start to follow the story, as soon as the second plane hit, we all knew we were being attacked. Of course, we had no clue who, but we knew we were being attacked. So that was scary enough that we're being attacked in New York, but it's kind of something that has happened before. We had the attacks back in '93, the bombings of the World Trade Center, and didn't know who was doing it, but we knew somebody was attacking us. People in your profession and in the news industry were hearing the alarms going off. Many of them thought those were car alarms. With us, we have a safety system mounted on our air packs that lets us know when a firefighter hasn't moved. Firefighters all across the country recognize that noise as a firefighter that wasn't able to move, and it was deafening. Well, I wouldn't dare compare the things that I've responded to what those firefighters went to that day. But on a normal response, we're trained to prepare for the worst the minute the call comes in and start our size up in our preparation before we ever get there. So those firefighters, when they heard that alarm go through, they were preparing for the worst when they responded, and they still went in. While everybody else was under the impression this could not happen, they were very aware of what they were risking when they went in, and they still did it. So through our training and through our preparation before the call ever comes in, that's the reason we're able to go into a dangerous situation, even one that we're risking our lives in. It isn't because we've all of a sudden decided that morning that we're going to go help. It's because we've been preparing. I felt very guilty on how people, they just wanted to show how grateful they were for the sacrifice those firefighters made. So oftentimes, I got so many free meals off of the sacrifice those gentlemen made. People would come in and see us going into work, and they would buy our meals for us. They would tell us thank you, and myself, I felt so guilty for taking those thank yous and getting recognized for what those heroic firefighters did. So that's one thing. I also felt very proud. I think sometimes it would be nice for our country to think about 9/12, and we think about 9/11 and how bad it was, but how together everybody came after that. There wasn't a lot of politics. There wasn't a lot of discussions about some of the smaller issues. We were pulled together as a country because we were shown that we were vulnerable in a way we never dreamed of. Well, we should honor the sacrifice of the people that not only responded to the incident that day, but also our soldiers and our people in uniform that responded in the years after. That's always something that I look at. And also remember how many things we have in common. We have much more in common than we disagree on. So I hope that everybody will remember that, because on 9/12, there wasn't a lot of discussion over some of the political things we talk about now. We were all together.
COVID-19 is still a major issue in our area and in the state of Georgia. City officials and local medical leaders are encouraging residents to make appointments to get the COVID-19 vaccine. For any questions on the vaccine, contact South Health District or SGMC. It will take a team effort to get through this pandemic. This concludes another edition of City Focus. Be sure to visit our website, valdostacity.com. Like us on Facebook, Valdosta, City Without Limits. Also join next door for city updates. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at City of Valdosta, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Metro 17 Valdosta, to watch City Focus on demand. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time here on City Focus.